Stephen Vanover here on the Sports Talk Line Network, where we talk sports 24/7, 365. This is the Round Table, and we're doing the NFL Draft Review, AFC North today. We have three august and esteemed panelists with us as we go around the room. We have Nate, No Remorse Dowdy. Good day, sir.
Hello.
Yes, and the coffee is kicking in, as you can tell. And in from New York, holding down the East Coast all by his lonesome in the war room, we have Tom McAllister.
Thanks for having me, Van.
Always a pleasure, sir. Always a pleasure. And as I said, we are doing the AFC North. Before we get started, quick, reach down, hit that subscribe button. That little bell comes up, notify. Thank you, Mr. Ratto, our director. I've done my duty. All right. And Nate, and you can find him on Twitter at No Remorse Sports. You're going to start us out with a team that is really relevant now that they got rid of a certain QB. We're talking about the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, it was interesting. There was a really good article in the Wall Street Journal the other week, actually, about team building and about how other people have a really unique way about scouting players. For instance, the San Francisco 49ers, they sent their scouts home during the combine. And their goal was to get these players one-on-one with Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. Now, when they got these players one-on-one, John Lynch was wearing nothing but a black leather thong and a spiked collar. And Kyle Shanahan had him on a leash, actually, and he was on all fours, and he would give these players a sniff test. He'd go sniff around the player's crotch region, and this would determine how they reacted in uncomfortable situations. So that was really good. And actually, John Lynch was a dropout of the Police Dog Academy. So he has a really strong nose. And once they passed his sniff test, they went on and they started sitting on the prospects' faces. Him and Kyle Shanahan would sit on their face while they had a black leather mask on. And they would call it butthole waterboarding.
Nate, what were you taking when I sent you the article titled 49ers Sniff Out Great Draft Picks?
Well, yeah, that's exactly it. And so that's not the preferred way. That's not a very good way to scout players. Conversely, you have a team like the New York Giants who finds great value in the first round with fifth-round caliber players. And they wait until the fifth round until the sniff out the first-round talent. Hasn't gone very well. With that being said, the Baltimore Ravens just do it a completely different way. They stick to their board. They get the best player available at every time, at all costs. They got a guy in the first round here with Patrick Queen who could have easily been taken 5 to 7 spots ahead of them. They let the board come to them. They had 2 second-round picks this year, traded one away to gain more value in the third round, but they added more speed to the offense with J.K. Dobbins, a guy with elite quickness, a guy who just adds to what they do on top of Mark Ingram and on top of Lamar Jackson.
Question.
Yeah.
Nate, J.K. Dobbins, okay? How good is he going to be? I mean, we've seen what the Ravens can do with their running game. It's not just the running back. They would like to have another runner in there to take advantage of that offensive line and the play and the scheme that they're doing and take some of the pressure off of their QB. Is this the kid? Can he do it?
Yeah, they already got a guy in place, but he's played 6 or 7 years in the league. They have an eventual replacement for him and a guy who can contribute right away. With that being said, in the third round, they got bullied last year in the AFC divisional round, and they ended up getting Justin Matabuke, a guy who was a top 30 player for me out of Texas A&M, a guy who could fill into their rotation because they added Calais Campbell and Derek Wolfe to that line in the offseason. Also, to add more speed to an already fast offense, they got Devin Duvernay out of Texas, a guy who did primarily most of his work from the slot, can twist and break son of a bitches with that thing. And they already had the guy who could take the top off the defense with Hollywood Brown for the year before, just more speed for that offense. And then the last pick of that third round, they had a guy named I have to look up his name, but he was out of he played right tackle at Mississippi State. They like him better as a guard. Might start as a rookie because of the retired Marshall Yonda. Man. And then they got a 6th-round prospect, Prochet, out of SMU, had a ton of production his last 2 years at SMU. Absolutely great draft. I think a lot of these guys, especially the top 5 picks, contribute immediately, whether they're starting or not. And they added a linebacker, Malik Harrison from Ohio State, a guy who can play all 3 linebacker positions. They get him with that position flexibility, put him next to Patrick Queen. A lot of these guys start immediately. Tom.
Yeah, I got a question. Now, when it comes to the size of an NFL linebacker, do you think 6 foot 229 is big enough?
Depends on the scheme. I think if you get him in an off-ball linebacker situation, get him where he's hunting players, I think that could work perfectly. You saw guys like Deion Jones in Atlanta, an undersized guy, come in and contribute right away.
You know, the reason why I asked that is because that's the size of Patrick Queen.
Right.
You know, I know about you when it's like when I hear the terms Ravens drafting a linebacker, I'm like, know what? It's going to work out great. They've been able to sniff out these great defensive players in the first round. But, you know, did you see Patrick Queen excelling in the Ravens scheme?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the guy just flies to the football. This guy's got elite closing speed. I think it's a great pickup, great value pick, along with their other picks, particularly Justin Matabuke. I love that guy. I said a top 30 player, a guy who could come in and contribute. Van, you had something to say.
Well, who you just mentioned, Matabuke, all right? I want to talk about him from 2 different points. First and foremost, it's one of the best freaking names in the draft. Come on, Matabuke. That's just an awesome name. He belongs on defense with that name. I love it. And then Justin. Oh, yeah, great name. But you mentioned Patrick Queen, and Tom, in answer to your question, very valid question. That is a little light depending upon the scheme. If you don't have him protected up front, he's probably going to have some issues because that way the line's going to get out and get on him at the second level. But you take a guy like Justin Matabuke and the way that they play defense, he's a 300-pounder right in front of him, and he will occupy 2 guys sometimes. He will take care of that. He will protect the guys behind him. It's not a problem. And that's really what I like about this draft down deep. Yes, their offense was prolific last year and the year before even, but it's not the offense that really drives this team and never has been. It's the defense. The defense is what moves this team, and that's what they paid attention to. Their offense as well, absolutely. But, man, they went linebacker, defensive tackle, linebacker, defensive tackle. They know where their strength, where their core really is. They went after it. And from what I can see, they hit home runs.
Yeah, and what on top of that, that's what lost them the game. They got bullied last year by the Tennessee Titans, and they said,
yes,
never again. Never again.
Yeah.
Never again.
Well, hold on. When is it going to happen?
Never again.
All right. We got it. I'm sorry I asked. Seriously. So what about grades here? What are we giving grades?
I give them an A+. I mean, I think they made their football team better, and you got guys who they contribute right away.
All right, Tom?
I'd go A-. I like the selection of running back in the second round. My one concern is, you know, Patrick Queen, it's like they got that one question around him with his size. You know, that's my one concern with them. But if there's a franchise that could take an undersized linebacker and make them great, it's the Ravens.
There you go. And I don't have any problem with him. He's a playmaker. Plug this kid in, get the heck out of the way. He's just like the kid you talked about that went down to Atlanta that went in the second round a few years ago. This kid, this kid can play. He's a playmaker. I love it. I'm giving them an A, just a solid A all around. I mean, wow, that's a heck of a draft right there. Well, next we're going to have the Cleveland Browns. That means we're going to have New York City Tom McAllister breaking it down for us. And, you know, the Browns, they do okay in the draft and they just blow it. and actually they've spent years of blowing it, but the last few years they've done okay. They've hit on a few. Can they put together another draft? Can they get a coaching staff that can actually coach them?
I think basically the Cleveland Browns are not in the basement of the NFL anymore, but they're at the level of mediocrity, which is still and underachievement. A lot of people thought coming into 2019, the Cleveland Browns would be the surprise team. You know, they had Landry, Odell Beckham Jr., Baker Mayfield had a strong rookie season. And wouldn't you know it, the Cleveland Browns did not live up to expectations.
No.
So, you know, that's something to take in consideration. You know, they might be trading some people out. They got weapons on offense. You know, they have that. And they made that stronger by shoring up that offensive line when they drafted offensive tackle from Alabama, Jedrick Willis.
Right.
In a draft that was very deep at offensive tackle, I felt like Willis was the second best offensive tackle. I thought Wirfs might have been a little bit better. But, you know, I think most teams would have been happy if they got Andrew Thomas, Mekhi Becton, Jedrick Willis, to say the least. So I think that's a good pick for the Cleveland Browns. It's a safe pick. The second round is where they start going off the rails a little bit. They draft safety out of LSU, Grant Delpit. Now, his biggest issue was a lot of people were easily able to break tackles from him. If they're able to do that in the SEC, what are they going to do in the NFL? And to expand things, they're also playing for the Cleveland Browns. So whatever usually negative trait you have gets expanded and multiplied when you put that uniform on for whatever reason. So that's a pick where I think is kind of makes me a little squeamish. But they come back, and I like their next pick. They selected Jordan Elliott, defensive tackle from Missouri. He's a big, disruptive defensive tackle. And when you look at that division, you're going up against the Steelers twice a year. You're going up against the Ravens twice a year. Those are teams that have the smash mouth or at least a strong running game on offense. You're going to be able to at least neutralize the running quarterback, Lamar Jackson, or shut down whatever running back the Pittsburgh Steelers keep on moving forward and forward and forward. So I think Jordan Elliott, is going to be make the biggest impact for the Cleveland Browns. Then,
Tom,
yes.
How's he going to slide in along that defensive line? I mean, the guy out there on the edge, you know, the best player on their team, he needs some help.
I think, you know, you could pair him up on the same side in their scheme could be a way to do it. And where it's, you know, the one thing with pass rushers, they usually welcome other pass rushers. They're usually, right. You know, while on offense, another great receiver is like, wait a minute, you know, only one person can get thrown the ball. Pass rushers, they both can rush the passer at the same time, you know, so they still get paid their money. So I think that's something that they could build on if Myles Garrett doesn't beat a quarterback with this helmet this season. It's a big if. But I do like the Jordan Elliott selection. Then there was another pick that kind of, you know, Jacob Phillips from LSU, linebacker.
He's awesome.
I think he's still a little bit undersized. And like I said, with the Cleveland Browns.
You New York guys, if they're not 242 pounds, set to play in a 3-4 in the middle.
If they're not Lawrence Taylor, they're a downgrade.
Exactly, man.
There's a reason why the Giants have not drafted a linebacker since 1983 in the first round.
I just explained it to you. They get great fifth-round value in the first.
There you go. See? That's the positive spin. Yeah. Great fifth-round value. And why wait?
With their former general manager, yes. This current general manager, I think, for the most part, has hit on his first-round picks, and Daniel Jones, at least most of them anyway. Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley, Dexter Lawrence.
Jones.
What's that?
That's no hit. That's a big wiffle ball miss so far.
We'll see. We'll see. You know, I anticipate growth if he cuts over turnovers and get an offensive line. But know what? I'm here to talk about the Cleveland Browns. Okay. Next up, you know, Phillips, I wasn't crazy about, even though he went to LSU. Harrison Bryant, tight ends. He has the speed, has the size, has drop issues. And that's something that's a little bit scarier when they go to a smaller university like Florida Atlantic, because usually they're not playing up against pro caliber type talent. So you just expect them, I think we mentioned before, when you play at Florida Atlantic, you expect them to dominate at the lower levels, which, he hasn't done. I do like this pick, though. Center Nick Harris from Washington. He needs to improve in his technique, but they got him in the 6th round. So I think going forward, I always feel like with interior linemen, you can find a gem in the 5th or 6th round that can be a Pro Bowl caliber starter in the right system or solidify a position. Tackles are usually the first ones to come off the board, where I think there's a lot of pressure. They don't succeed. While interior linemen, I think they get more leeway and you're more likely to pluck out a gem. And lastly, they got Dorian Papel from Michigan, 6'2", 212, good frame, but he lacks speed. And since he's going to Cleveland, he'll probably get slower because that's what the Cleveland Browns do. Anything that could be a negative, they make it worse. So for a draft grade, I'm going to give it a C+. Just, I take into, these are the Cleveland Browns. And I think one thing I've been driving home is that with these picks, if there's anything the Cleveland Browns have taught us, if there's anything negative in their, draft plan or draft evaluation, it definitely gets expanded on the next level in the NFL. Nate, how do you think about, Grant Delpit with the Browns?
I think it was a great value pick. And originally, if you looked at his sophomore tape, he was a consensus top 10 pick. And a lot of teams were thinking in this past year when he was missing so many tackles, it could have been because he was phoning it in and kind of trying to protect himself from an injury. So that's the gamble here. It's what player is this guy really? Going back to the 1st round, I really liked the value that they got from the tackle from Bama. He's a right tackle now, so not necessarily protecting Baker Mayfield's blind side. And they got great value again in the 3rd round with Jordan Elliott, a guy with a lot of production at Missouri. So I love their first 3 picks. With that being said, you know how you give certain teams the benefit of the doubt? You don't give that with the Cleveland Browns. You the Super Bowl shuffle. They play the front office shuffle. Every other year, they're cycling in a new general manager, a new president, a new this, new that. They just can't stick to a plan. So I'm going to go not giving them the benefit of any doubt in this, and I'm going to give them a solid C, even though I like their first 3 picks.
Van, how do you feel? I saw you doing the.
I'm real close to where Nate is on a lot of these, and I'll just explain it a slightly different way. The Browns somehow, even with the handicap of their front office, who is it this year? Yeah, exactly. You got to go look it up. All right. They got Chedrick Wills, solid pick. Jordan Elliott, solid pick, solid production all the way around. Jacob Phillips, I like this kid. The knock on him, you don't like his size. He can do it all. Good production, and you can play him 3 downs. Nick Harris, another solid kid that you can work in there. All right, but then they've got these other picks, and to me, if you're gonna make a pick, I like their 6th round pick there, Donovan. He's not the fastest guy, but hey, he can catch the ball. What's a wide receiver's primary job? Catching the football. That if you can't do that, you're not going to be a guy that should be in that position. For a safety, what is like one of your primary jobs there? Okay, it's to tackle. And this guy was doing a combination of becoming a human missile where he would just, going like that, and then he would miss sometimes, just totally whiff. Or just soft wrap-ups, and then they would break out. Just totally different than the year before, as Nate said, and you have to wonder what's going on. But just like I don't think it would be wise to ignore his previous year, it's also not wise to ignore this year. All right, that means this guy will make decisions like this at the best. He's a guy that will do that, so consider that. But he's failing at the primary task for his job. You have a tight end that's failing at the primary task for his job. What's his big problem? It's not his speed, it's his hands. Okay, wait a minute. That just blows my mind. So with that, with what they do in that regard, they go from solid picks to me, questionable intent. I mean, you draft guys like that in the 4th round and after, maybe even the 5th and 6th round, not in the 2nd round. I just don't like the Grant Delpit pick. I think he's got a ton of talent. He could really work out for him, but in a locker room that doesn't really demand the most out of everybody, I just don't see it happening. I'm tempted to give him a D+ because I agree with Nate. You can't give him the benefit of any doubt, but they got a bunch of solid guys in there. They really did. So I also give him a very solid C.
Well, you are on the right track right there, and you're copying off of someone's paper, it looks like.
Maybe. All right. And now it's my turn, I believe, because we're going to do the Bengals, the Cincinnati Bengals. Excuse me. And this is actually a pretty easy one to draft. I mean, to grade, because they are not that far away from the Browns in front office credulity. Would you guys agree with that? I mean, they have more stability with their front office and with their coaching, but yeah, Tom?
Before the Cleveland Browns were the laughingstock of the NFL, the Cincinnati Bengals were the laughingstock of the NFL. And you got to give Marvin Lewis a lot of credit. He came in and he stabilized it. They didn't reach the Super Bowl, have playoff success, but he got him out of that bottom barrel and made him into a playoff team.
I totally agree, because Mike Brown, I think, is up for one of the worst owners in sports. He's on the list. He's not going to win, but he deserved to be mentioned as being on the list. He's that bad. So with that in mind, I look at their draft and I go like, wow, not bad. QB Joe Burrow, 6'3", 221 pounds. And here's the thing with Burrow. You know, he went number 1 in the draft, but he's not Peyton Manning. He's not Andrew Luck. He's not Jesus either. All right. The way I would describe him, I'm going to flip this back to you, Nate. I would describe him as, he's not a big arm game changer, but he will maybe get into a Pro Bowl or two. Think Kirk Cousins with less speed and more size.
Yeah, I mean, you got to remember, he had one of the best, arguably the best seasons in college football history for any quarterback.
Yes.
He broke records for touchdown passes. Again, you got to qualify it because he did play in since they've inducted the playoffs, he played in a couple extra games that other quarterbacks didn't. But still, however you break it, this was elite production. With that being said, this was the first season that they really opened it up at LSU.
Yeah, he's done it 1 year, to have that production like that. And it's how he did it. He's a very intelligent quarterback. He knows his skills. He knows what he can do with his arm. He doesn't have a cannon for an arm, right? He's not going to do the Brett Favre stuff, but he is going to really know what he's doing. He's a very heady guy. He knows his offense. He studies. He seems to really be on top of his game. I like him. I like him a whole lot. So anyhow, I give that pick right there a solid A. I mean, it's just a great pick. I mean, he's not Peyton Manning. He's not one of these guys, but he's he's going to be a really good QB. You move on down from there, wide receiver T. Higgins, 6'4", 216 pounds, just a big guy. Think A.J. Green Jr. Now, there's a little bit of a rub on this, some people would say, because how does he complement A.J. Green? Well, I mean, I just don't mind having 2 A.J. Greens out there. I just don't. But more importantly, I don't think they have to worry about that. He's going to be learning from A.J. Green. A.J. Green is on the declining side of his career. He has problems staying healthy. This kid's going to have plenty of time out there where he's going to be the WR1 by himself. He's going to need to grow up fast. I think he can do it. He had all the production you'd want in college. He's got, the height. He's got the weight. and he has a huge wingspan, and he knows it. He knows how to use it. So that really increases his catch radius. The kid is a total package. I love the pick. As a matter of fact, I think this is the best pick of the draft for them. Linebacker Logan Wilson, they come back in the third. He's 6'2", 241 pounds, Tom. Okay, so he's got to be good right there, okay? But he's got a nice 40-yard dash. I think it's a 4.6, something like that. 21 reps at 225, got a 32-inch vertical. He's a good all-around athlete. He had a heck of a collegiate career. He was first-team all-conference, third-team All-American as a senior, 104 tackles, 9.5 for loss, 1 sack, 3 interceptions, 6 pass breakups, and he blocked a kick. He's a 3-year captain. He's a workaholic. Plug this kid in. It doesn't really matter where you plug him in. He's going to get better as he goes along. That's the way that he plays. I think it's a great pick. They come back and go linebacker again with Akeem Davis-Gaither, 6'1", 224 pounds. So sorry, Tom. He's no good. But he is have a 225 pounds. He's still knocked out 21 reps at that. He was SBC Defensive Player of the Year in his senior season for the Mountaineers with 104 tackles, 14.5 for loss, 5 sackles, an interception, and 8 pass breakups. He's a 3-down player. This kid does it all. He plays on special teams. He's a splashy, big play guy. That's what he does. Get him in the lineup, put him on the weak side, and until he gets it all figured out, he's going to excel on special teams. Then they come back, defensive end, Khalid Kareem, 6'4", 268 pounds, 34 3/8-inch arms. He's leggy. He got 5.5 sacks as a senior. He tied for the team lead in that. He also led the Irish in total force fumbles for the year on 3. He has the perfect size and length, and he's got a great motor. He doesn't have that sudden first step that would put him in the elite class. That's why he's drafted down here. But that motor will get him. He'll get some of those TJ Watt sacks as his technique gets better and better. Then they come back and get offensive tackle Hakeem Adeniji, 6'4", 302 pounds, 33 3/4-inch arms, 10-inch hands. He gets his hands on you, it's over. He's got a nice 40-yard dash, 5.17, 26 reps with those nice arms, and he's got a 34-inch vertical. All conference, captain's letter, played right and left tackle. He's a versatile big guy, probably going to move inside at this level, and the Bengals got him in the 6th round. Go ahead, Tom. You got something on this?
Since this draft was very well known for being deep at tackle, do you think the Bengals waited too long to get an offensive tackle?
They did not wait too long to get an offensive guard. They waited too long to get an offensive tackle, yes. This guy's an offensive guard. He's going to have to move to the inside at this level. I mean, he's a 300-pound guy, okay? I mean, and he projects to the inside. If they play him on the outside, I think they've got problems. But I mean, hey, they do have problems. So I mean, he could end up there. Nate was like, "Oh man, let me answer. Let me in on this." Okay, all right. Then they end up with another linebacker, Marcus Bailey, 6 foot, 235 pounds. He was a walk-on starter. He was injured his senior year, but he tabbed 115 tackles, 9 for loss, 5.5 sacks, and 1 interception as a junior. The knee is reportedly all good to go, and so is Bailey. You get that much production from a Purdue linebacker, so it was good competition he was up against. You get him in the 7th round, that is a solid pick. He's going to excel on special teams as a minimum. This is a great all-around draft, one of the few that I give an A+, and when you consider that it is the Bengals, it is truly mind-blowing. Tom, what do you got to say about this? And what grade are you going to give it?
When it comes to grading, I do like, the Burrow selection we kind of talked about. I think I also like the T. Higgins selection. I just think, a big wideout, pair him with your quarterback. One of the keys to success for Darius Slayton last year, who was a 5th-round draft pick by the Giants, was in the offseason when Daniel Jones was kind of on the second team, him and Slayton were forming that bond, forming that connection, running routes. Fast forward a few weeks in the season, Darius Slayton had a great rookie year, outplayed expectations of a 5th-round draft pick, and he pretty much became Daniel Jones' #1 receiver. For a grade, I would say B+. I also think, though, too, the Bengals released A.J. Dalton. They hopefully got A.J. Green coming back. But also, I think you do want a rookie quarterback to struggle in their first season because you want the rookie quarterback to figure out the NFL before the NFL figures out the rookie quarterback. Now, Nate, how do you feel about grading?
Man, that's the biggest spin I've ever heard in my life. You want a rookie quarterback to fail as the first year?
Aikman,
Who wants Dan Marino? Who wants Dan Marino?
No, forget about Dak Prescott. We want Daniel.
Dak Prescott's overrated.
Look at his.
But hold on. I do like what you say, though, about the letting them grow together. That was a great point. I should have brought it up. You think of Romo and Witten, 2 guys that really grew together. Go ahead, Tom. I know you think of Witten all the time.
I think I should clarify this. It's not the rookie quarterback. It's when the rookie quarterback is the #1 draft pick. Because a lot of times, Baker Mayfield, hey, look at him. He had a solid rookie campaign, and then he regresses. I'm thinking about the #1 draft pick. So the Peyton Manning, Troy Aikman, when they came in, they had god-awful rookie seasons.
Nobody regressed like Marino regressed. From Super Bowl to never again. That's regression.
Yeah. But it's also they made it to the Hall of Fame. So I haven't seen that when it comes to quarterback, the #1 pick being a quarterback that has that great rookie season and then maintains it throughout their career.
Correct. Yeah. Aikman definitely struggled. On that team, anybody would have struggled, but still, yeah, that's good. So anyhow, Nate, what is it? You're going to do this, get and grade it up, and then we're going to move on. And Tom, what was the grade that you gave the Bengals?
B+.
B+?
B+.
C. Got it.
Yeah, anyway, I was a big fan of the Joe Burrow selection. He was the best quarterback in this draft. However, I disagree with you, Van. I do not like the T. Higgins selection at all. I don't think
What's surprising about that?
Yeah. I don't view him as a wide receiver #1, and I don't think he creates the necessary separation to do that. However, he was working out with Joe Burrow in the offseason here. So
Nate, on that thing there, when you look at him and study him, and I have, it's interesting, and I actually wrote in his thing, in his breakdown, that'll get published later with this, that he doesn't create separation on the break. You're absolutely right. He's leggy, and he creates separation between his breaks. It takes him about a step and a half, and then all of a sudden, he's pulling away from the other guy in between his breaks. It's where he creates separation. It's different than most wide receivers.
Well, I didn't see any separation. So he's a guy who doesn't create any separation. I think he's light years apart from someone like AJ.
But now what's better? A guy that creates separation and catches that many balls, or a guy that catches that many balls with no separation?
Well, it's the production that matters. But we're talking about translating to the NFL level here. We're not college production. So I had a good 3 to 4 receivers ahead of him. I think they could have selected. With that being said, he did develop a little bit of chemistry with Joe Burrow. They worked out together in the offseason. So it's going to be interesting to see if he trusts them early in his career. I love the pick of Logan Wilson, had a lot of production at Wyoming. Was a defensive back in high school, actually, a really productive defensive back, had something like 10 to 12 interceptions his senior year. And that translated into his play at Wyoming. Has natural solid hands, a playmaker, dominated the smaller conference the way you'd want to see. I think that's my favorite pick out of all of them. So with that being said, again, I have to go under the lens of not giving the Bengals the benefit of the doubt when it comes to it. So I give them a B-.
Oh, man. You guys are harsh, man. This is my only A+. I love this draft. I just think they did so good all the way around. I think they did well with every pick. I don't have a problem with anything. When you guys talked about players you like, I totally agree with your assessment on there. T. Higgins doesn't have to be a number one right now, thank goodness. But again, there's game 3. By the time then, Green will be injured. So anyhow, that'll come. It's going to be a lot of fun. I am disappointed in your review, Nate, in one regard. Only one. How did you pass up when you said there were wide receivers they could have taken instead of him and not mention who? Who?
CD go turn it the lamb chops.
All right. And actually, you're back up because now we're going to move on to the Pittsburgh Steelers and see how they did as the last team in the North.
Yeah, well, you have to start this because they did not have a first-round selection in this draft, and it had to come down to the Minka Fitzpatrick trade. I originally slammed that pick when it happened because I thought they did it very early in the season when they made that trade, and I thought since losing their quarterback, they were basically going to be handing over a top 10 pick. That's the way I looked at it. They proved me completely wrong. He turned out to a player who was basically contending for the Defensive Player of the Year. So that was an A+ with that trade.
I would give him Comeback Player of the Year, hands down.
Yeah, I mean, only in his second year they get the 5th-round option. So they got him for essentially another 4 years. Move on to the second round. They got Chase Claypool from Notre Dame. This guy is freaking massive. Yes, Tom?
My question is, Chase Claypool, 6'4", 235, 4'4", 540. Only other person to do that was Calvin Johnson. How come he wasn't snatched up quicker?
Well, he didn't have a lot of at Notre Dame, they basically had a really limited route tree for him. So he was basically running primarily go routes.
He only needs one.
But with that being said, most of his production was jump balls. And actually, I know some teams viewed him more as a tight end because he's 6'4", 240 pounds. I think if they did something with him as a rookie where they lined him up the seam and he just ran go routes, I think he'd make a killing against safeties and linebackers. So it's going to be interesting the way the Steelers view him. Now in the 3rd round, they got Alex Highsmith, a guy from Charlotte. He had a ton of production last year. He had 15 sacks. He was a smaller school guy, actually kind of a smaller guy. I don't know how he's going to crack the lineup initially, but he's a guy, I think the best case scenario, his rookie year would be coming in, filling in for someone like a TJ Watt or something like that. Now, later on in the draft, they got, I think they got Dotson, I believe. Yeah, they got Anthony McFarland, Booger McFarland's son. And this is going to be interesting because, remember, they had a certain receiver who was a diva by the name of something Brown. I think we all know who we're talking about now. And that's the knock on Anthony McFarland. He's a guy who's going to he gave the coaching staff a lot of trouble at Maryland. He had a lot of issues cursing out coaches. So here we are, we're moving on from Antonio Brown, and we're taking on another boom or bust prospect in Anthony McFarland there. I could either see it going haywire or I think he's going to produce right away. It's an interesting choice. Tom?
Do you think, you mentioned McFarland, he kind of has a diva reputation. Do you think him being a 4th-round selection might kind of like lessen the noise and be like, listen, we're giving you a shot, but, we don't have as much invested in you. Like, let's say McFarland came in as a 1st-round pick. Do you think that ego would have been more to handle, or this might have lessened his ego a little bit and make it more manageable with the Steelers organization? Because the Steelers organization have been a model for NFL success since the 1970s. But you had the Antonio Brown situation. You had Le'Veon Bell sit out a full year. You're starting to see some cracks in that foundation. So you got to wonder if they can succeed going forward.
Well, they almost went to the playoffs last year, and I think that's a credit to the coaching staff and the way they were able to get that done.
And the remaining players, their kind of players. That was a addition through subtraction thing in both those cases. There's no doubting the players that went were talented. But look at Antonio Brown. Obviously, he was just the fact they managed him so long is amazing. This is a guy that needs some help. He has some problems, and things like that are more important than football. And he needs to be taking care of those problems. And I wish him the best because he definitely has some issues.
Well, the funny part is with Antonio Brown, he's got it ass backwards from Jay-Z. He's got 99 problem in a bitch is one. So anyway, go further down the line. Well, as we were talking about McFarland, as Tom was saying, yeah, the fourth round's usually the round where you take risks. You take risky players. That's the injury round, the consensus injury round, and that's where you invest in players with kind of off the field issues. That's actually where the Patriots invested in Aaron Hernandez. So that's definitely the round to do that.
The definition of issue.
Yeah. Anyway, later on in the draft, they got Kevin Dotson from the guard from Louisiana. I really don't see him contributing. I think he could be a guy who could be a great backup for you, but I'm just not sure he's going to contribute. And the last 2 7-round picks, they had let's see,
Antoine Brooks Jr. and Carlos Davis.
Yeah. I don't know how. I don't see these 2 7-round picks how they're going to make the team. Maybe if they contribute on special teams, that's going to be interesting. So really, when it comes down to grading the Pittsburgh Steelers, it's going to come down to kind of the boom or bust team. Because the guys I really see contributing to the team are Chase Claypool, and that's kind of based off of how they used him, in my opinion. And McFarland, I think, could get carries right away if he buckles down. So it's kind of a boom or bust draft for me, but you have to keep in mind the Steelers are an organization where you give them the benefit of the doubt. They've earned that. As well, you have to include the Minkah Fitzpatrick trade. So
you have to include Fitz, man.
Yeah. So with that being said, I give him a B. Now I know, Tom. What do you think of the Steelers draft?
Well, first off, size matters, no matter what people tell Nate. But I think Chase Claypool, he was the one that is kind of speaking as like the steal from the draft. And I think, the Steelers have a very good reputation of developing wide receivers on the field, maybe not so much off the field. And also, as we mentioned before, you give the Steelers the benefit of the doubt. So I give them a B+. The only knock I could see, they might want to be taking a look for an heir apparent to Ben Roethlisberger. So the Steelers should have been the team that drafted a quarterback in the 2020 NFL draft from Pennsylvania, not the Eagles.
I see where you guys are coming from. I'll jump right out there and tell you, I'm giving him a B+. And I agree with what you said, Tom. Chase Claypool, I love that pick, man. I love it all sorts of ways. I think Nate is right on about how they're going to use him in a more creative fashion, sort of like, an H-back split out tight end type thing, whatever you want to call it. Try to match him up against linebackers, et cetera. Let him use that 4.46 speed and just fly. And then even if they do come in, he can sky, he can catch the contested ball. The Steelers know how to use a guy that has gadget matchup potential. I think Cordell Stewart is a good example where they used him as a wide receiver, QB, et cetera. They can get the most out of that guy. When you throw in the Kirkpatrick, some people are saying, well, if they didn't get the full 5 years, so you can't. Shut the fuck up. This guy is going to be an awesome player for them. He falls right in line with their history of fantastic safety play. He is a match. Kirkpatrick and the Steelers, that is a fantastic thing for them. You throw all that together. Nate, you put it, it's not a very deep draft for them, but they're a very solid team. I only see a few of these guys making the team / contributing as well, but I still give them a B+. There it is. For everybody listening out there, hey, what do you think about what we just said down here? What grade do you give each of these teams, the Ravens, Steelers, Browns, and Bengals? Our consensus is the Bengals, excuse me, darn it, the Ravens. The Ravens had the best draft. Okay. Nate's going, what? What the fuck? What? Okay. Yeah, I mean, and the Bengals, who I gave the only A+ in the whole draft, I believe. They did not. All right. That just is. But, you know, if you're listening, you have a comment on a player, on our opinion, please put it below. We'd love to see that, maybe respond to it. We could have some back and forth with you. And let's go around the room here real quick. Tom McAllister, you can find him on Twitter at defends_com. Tom, thank you so much for being here, sir.
Thanks for having me, man.
Always a pleasure. And of course, Nate Dowdy, you can find him on Twitter at No Remorse Sports. Mr. Nate Dowdy, thank you so much for being here, sir. You covered 2 teams today, man.
Yeah, I did. You put me to work, and I wish I could say the same.
Oh, yeah, me too. But, you know, we both know you can. All right. So, and you can find me on Twitter at Stephen Van Ober. Be sure and follow Sports Talkline on Twitter at Sports Talkline. Yeah, it's all really that easy. And we really appreciate you taking time out to watch this live and or later, however you did it. Be sure and comment below. Be sure and subscribe. Hit that notify bell. Thanks a lot for being here. Until next time, listen and watch like you play with intensity.